And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Happy pre-draft eve, if you will. Live here on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. As we mentioned, it's April 24th, 2024. So that means we are just, I'd say 25 hours away. Is that right? From the first pick of the NFL draft. And it's going to be live from Detroit City. We've been waiting a long time for the Motor City to host the NFL draft, and it's hard to believe that it's going to be here tomorrow. Can't wait for that. A lot of dreams are going to be fulfilled. That's where a lot of dreams will start, too, with the NFL draft. And I think we all know the consensus on what the draft is going to be, the first pick of the draft anyways, and with Caleb Williams from USC, primed to go to the Chicago Bears. And after that, who knows who's going to be the next pick. I'm sure it's going to be a quarterback. More than likely, it's going to be Jaden Daniels, but we'll talk all about that here tonight. Scheduled to join us here on the show tonight will be Bo Crouch from the Talking with Bo podcast network on YouTube. We'll get his insight on everything to do with the NFL draft and a whole lot more. Hey, great news out of Detroit as well with the signing long-term of the extensions of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell, both of them signing big contracts. Amon-Ra St. Brown, $120 million over 4 years, $77 million of it guaranteed. That means he is indeed the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL right now. And I got a feeling that this is going to be it's going to be a steal because I give Detroit kudos because they signed him before Justin Jefferson and let's see who else. Jamar Chase from Cincinnati before they got their extensions. So I got a feeling that could be a bargain. So a great signing in getting Amon-Ra St. Brown signed. And, of course, Penei Sewell, the linchpin, the anchor of that Detroit offensive line. He's going to be with Detroit for a few more years as well. So really excited about that. Hey, Stanley Cup playoffs are in full swing as well with the games. It's really been an exciting few games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Colorado bounced back last night against the Winnipeg Jets, and of course that game with Toronto, with Tampa Bay and Florida. You talk about goaltending supreme with Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky. I'll tell you what, that was a great matchup as well. We'll talk about that here tonight. Reggie Bush gets his Heisman back. Okay. He was always going to be the Heisman winner. It was vacated, I guess, from the, improprieties, if you will, in that. But he still is indeed going to be he's always been the Heisman winner in my book. And now he's reinstated, if you will, because, hey, the NCAA, there are no rules right now in the NCAA. So why not give him back his Heisman? I don't know if his defamation lawsuit is still going to go on. I know Reggie Bush, I got a feeling it will definitely still be going on. So a lot of that to talk about. We got the draft, as we mentioned, the first round. How many quarterbacks are going to be taken in the NFL draft in the first round? Is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 5? Is it going to be 6? Who knows? Who knows who's going to go where? I got a feeling there's going to be so many trades. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch tomorrow. The only thing the toughest thing for me is I was telling my wife earlier tonight, I'm not used to the Lions picking 29th. They've never picked that low unless they traded down. As of right now, they're in the first round, but don't be surprised if they even trade out of it. If their guy that they want isn't there, maybe accumulate a few more second-round draft picks. Who knows? Hey, tonight's broadcast of the Captain Lou Extravaganza on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network, of course, as always, is brought to you by tickets.12ouncesports.com. Go to tickets.12ouncesports.com if you want to go see that major league game you've been waiting to go to. Minor league baseball, they're both in full swing. A little chilly here in the Michigan area with potentially 40 to 25 degree weather tonight. I think we got a freeze warning out tonight, and we're going to be 80 degrees maybe on Sunday. But if you want to go to a minor league game, go to the Tigers. They're playing really well right now. Looking for a 5-1 road trip, go to tickets.12ouncesports.com. You want to go to Game 3 of the Colorado Avalanche and the Winnipeg Jets, or Game 3 of the Washington Capitals or the Rangers, go to tickets.12ouncesports.com. If you want to go to the NBA playoffs, they're getting in high gear as well. Tickets.12ouncesports.com. Make sure you use the promo code 12ounce too when you get to checkout, and you'll even get a little more of a discount. That's tickets.12ouncesports.com. We are a ticket broker. You're not going to get the fees that you see at some of these other secondary market sites. That's tickets.12ouncesports.com. Also, we're brought to you tonight, as always, here on the network by javicoffee.com. As again, a mainstay here on 12 Ounce Sports, or the Captain Lou Extravaganza. If you like instant coffee, or you like coffee in general, hot or cold, this is a great way to go. Takes a couple of teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon, whatever the case may be. Go to javicoffee.com, and while you're there, use the promo code Captain Lou, all one word, for 15% off of your purchase at checkout. That is javicoffee.com. All right. Without any further ado, let's bring in our special guest tonight here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Let's welcome in Bo Crouch from the Talking Football with Bo Network on YouTube. I invite everybody to check it out. He's got some great content on there, a lot of great stories, a lot of great shows. Bo, thanks for taking time out tonight to be with us. Happy Draft Eve. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Man, I'm so ready for the draft to finally happen. I'm tired of seeing all these mock drafts.
Oh, for sure. It's like we said at the top. This is everybody's 0-0 with an equal opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. They all get their saviors in the opening round of the draft. So much excitement, and it seems to get bigger and bigger every year.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, this year is interesting because of how many quarterbacks are slated to go. Yeah. So it's going to be it's going to be good to watch.
It's funny, Bo, is we all know who's going to go first, and more than likely second and third, with Williams and Daniels and Drake May. And I was just reading something, I don't know, about an hour and a half ago, that are saying now that you could see Bo Penix even going as high as 6. I mean, or not Bo.
Bo Nix.
Bo Nix, the Penix kid out of Oregon or Washington. I mean, I watched him at Indiana, loved his game there. It's crazy, all the speculation of all these quarterbacks.
Yeah, the one that's surprising is the kid out of Florida State, right? Because he's getting no play at all.
Yeah.
Mock drafts that I've seen for him have been, in the 6th round, which is wild to me when you figure Florida State was an undefeated team and they blame the fact that they didn't get into the playoff because he was injured. So if he has that big of an impact, you mean to tell me he is lower on the list than Spencer Rattler? How does that work? So, it's going to be a wild draft for sure.
So that's you brought up an interesting name, Spencer Rattler. He went to South Carolina after, starting out at Oklahoma, and some guy by the name of Caleb Williams unseated him as a starting quarterback before he transferred. Boy, I like the moxie of Rattler. It's funny how far he's fallen, and he could still be a day 2 quarterback pick.
I think he is. When you look at the quarterbacks that are going to go, the top 6, right?
Yeah.
That's no question. I'll be surprised if any of those 6 leave the first round at this point.
Yeah.
Then there's a significant drop off between the next group. And I would say the highest that next group goes is the 3rd, right? So that's at least day 2.
Yeah. I agree. And I like his moxie. I like his game. I've always liked it. And it's one that's kind of slipped down into the draft. Bo, I want to talk about the Chicago Bears with you for a second. They're obviously taking Williams at 1, but they've got another pick, at a decent spot in the draft in the opening round, unless they trade out of it, trade down. Now, I know some of the folks are saying they're going to take Oduzze, but do you think that they should maybe shift their focus a little bit to get some offensive line help for Williams in the opening round?
Absolutely. I mean, unless you want him to be Justin Fields part 2, because I don't care how good you think a quarterback is, he's not completing passes on the ground.
Yeah.
Right. So having weapons is great. He actually has some decent weapons at this point. They've upgraded that defense. The problem is the organization is a problem. They have a lame duck coach that realistically, unless they go crazy, is probably getting fired. Right. Yeah. Which means next year, if they do have Caleb, he's going to have the offensive coordinator for this year and the coach. And then if they don't fare very well, he's going to have another head coach, probably a whole new coaching regime yet again. And we've seen that stunt the growth of quarterbacks all throughout the league. So it's not like it'd be unique to the Bears. You look at that scenario for the Browns, who have spent 30 years looking for a quarterback. Or when you look at the Jets, who have 3 of the top 5 worst first round draft QBRs.
Yeah.
Right. With Sanchez and Wilson. And I mean, so there's a real problem with having to change coaching as you're getting into the league, because you're not only just learning how to play in the NFL where everybody's big and fast and strong. You now have your coaching styles are changing. So I don't know that he is going to be able to adapt to that very well. So they better get him some offensive line because, again, all the weapons in the world don't matter if you can't get it to them.
So, Bo, I want to talk a little bit now. We're going to jump all over the board here with the talk with the Vikings. I'm sticking with the NFC North. That's kind of my home base here. With the Vikings, there's the talk about they may trade up to get McCarthy, or he may still be available at 11. Do you think that they make a trade to get up to go after McCarthy?
I mean, they don't have a ton of draft capital, though.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I guess it depends on how much they love McCarthy. Right. I mean, if they're convinced he's that guy, I mean, maybe, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know how you can be convinced he's that guy, because he was never asked to do a lot of things with Michigan. Right. Yeah. That was a run first offense. He throws the ball well, but he wasn't asked to do a lot. So you don't know exactly what it is he's going to be when he gets to the league. As much as high as people are on McCarthy, he looks like a guy that potentially could benefit from sitting behind somebody for a year. Now, that being said, you do have Sam Darnold there.
Yeah.
And he has started a lot of games. And this is a scenario where this team is good enough that Sam Darnold could probably do some damage with it. I mean, they won a lot of games with just a rotating cast of quarterbacks last year. So maybe they do go after JJ and they look at Darnold to start the year and then bring him on, later in the year if he's in bad shape or, he gets hurt or whatever, right?
Well, obviously I've got a bias being a Michigan guy, and I'd love to see McCarthy do really well, but it kind of scares me a little bit. He kind of reminds me a little bit of the kid that just got traded away from the Patriots, and his name escapes me right now.
Oh, Mac Jones?
Mac Jones. Thank you. And he was – I hate that label of a system quarterback, but I think it's going to depend, and you've got a great point. I think with McCarthy, it just depends where he lands. He was in a great system at Michigan. He's a winner, but so was Mac Jones. That's what I worry about the most with McCarthy.
Well, so here's my thing with people coming to the NFL from college in general, right?
Yeah.
Is about this time of year, the NFL has been, done long enough that people are just craving football. And so the speculation gets crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden it goes from these guys are, they're going to be effective to now they're generational talents somehow every year. And the thing is you're playing good against teams that have like the best teams have 3 to 5 NFL caliber guys on that team at any given time, right?
Yeah.
You're going to go into the league where your worst team, the 53rd man, was an All-American somewhere.
That's something.
Right. So it's not like you are playing against a college team where the roster has 120 people on it and you are playing against guys that are going to do other things with their career. Now you're going against 53 guys that are the best of the best. Yeah. So do they look like maybe they're not awesome against the top elite? Sure. But that's still a guy that was the best at every level up to that point. So, I mean, the expectations for some of these guys are wildly unrealistic.
And it's amazing. I've talked to guys that have been in the league, and so many of them go in there wide-eyed, but they also think that they've got this game down. And sure. Their first couple of practices or their first preseason game, it is definitely one hell of a wake-up call. The speed and everything,
Oh yeah. Now, my first arena game was exactly that. It was so much faster than anything I'd played before.
Wow, that's crazy. So, all right, here's the question. We'll go back to a quarterback question. Again, we know Caleb Williams is going to Chicago unless something absolutely ridiculous happens in the next 24 and a half hours. If you had your druthers, you're the Washington Commanders, you're on the clock. Jaden Daniels or Drake May? Who would you lean towards?
Oh, I'm taking Daniels.
Okay.
And the reason for that isn't necessarily because I think he's a better thrower of the ball per se. He has better wheels. And when I am looking at a team that has first-year owners, first-year coaching regime, first-year GM setup, and a menagerie of new roster,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like there's very few people that return to this team. I'm going to need a guy that is able to move around because this is not going to be a well-oiled machine week one, especially when you look at how they're allowed to practice at this point in the league, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're not allowed to do live hitting really. You get 2 days of that in OTAs and, preseason. So you don't get much of that. You get a little bit of joint practices, which doesn't really, garner a lot of growth. And then in the preseason, it's primarily guys that aren't even going to end up on the team. So if you're going in week one, I need a guy that can move because otherwise you're going to look a lot like Daniel Jones, where he got sacked 11 times. And, that's a rough start. So if you got a guy that can run a little bit, I think in that organization, it's going to be helpful.
With Jaden Daniels, Bo, maybe it's just me, but I didn't know a whole lot about him going into last year at LSU. I don't follow the SEC as strongly as I follow the Big Ten, but boy, it just seems that he came out of nowhere. But boy, he's got the talent, and I think he could be almost a Lamar Jackson type of talent. Oh, we lost him. Well, we seem to have lost our we seem to have lost Bo Crouch. Hopefully we can get him back on. Here we go. Let's see if we can grab him back.
Sorry about
there
that.
You go.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
The joys of live broadcast, right?
Boy, isn't it? Hey, you just got to adapt and move on, man. It's what I've learned over the years,
Okay, so I missed that question. So
that's all right. No, getting back to Jaden Daniels. Now, I got to be honest with you. I didn't know a whole lot about him about this time last year going into fall ball. And then all of a sudden, he just, I don't know if he came out of nowhere, but, he wins the Heisman and he just came on like gangbusters. But do you think that he's got the potential to be a generational talent like a Lamar Jackson? And he says he wants to break all the rushing records along with the passing records. Do you think he's got that capability?
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Obviously it was great for him. He's going into the draft after a monumental season, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I was a little bit surprised that Caleb Williams is still the number one overall pick because he didn't play particularly well. Had he been drafted the year before, number one pick makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like after this last season, there were a lot of red flags that I was surprised that he's still the general consensus for the number one pick. But to answer your question, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him.
Okay.
Right. Like I saw a lot of him last year, but similar to you, I didn't see much of him before that. And I don't know if it's because he wasn't necessarily playing or if I just, I'm a Pac-12 guy. So maybe, I just didn't see enough film of him. But so honestly, I don't know. I would need to see more from him. That being said, if he's going to Washington, he's got a hurdle to jump before we can even talk about that.
boy, does he ever. You got that right. We're talking with Bo Crouch from the Talking Football with Bo YouTube network. Again, I invite you to check it out. He's got a lot of great shows on there, great interviews. It's definitely worth the look. Now that I know that you're a West Coast guy, Pac-12 guy, or the former Pac-12, I should say, welcome to the Big Ten, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about who I think is the best talent on the defensive side of the ball coming out of the draft is going to be Leto. I know I pronounced it right. I butchered it, but I've seen some mocks having him fall down into the 20s. My God, I hope he falls to 29 for Detroit. Detroit could snatch him up. But I think he's the best talent on the defensive side of the ball going into the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. There's a few guys that could make an argument, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you. There's no way he's still on the board for Detroit.
I know, wishful thinking, right?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, for Detroit, I could see them just trading out of the first round. Yeah. Get a couple extra picks and load up on some depth. Because, I mean, anybody that you're going to get at 25, you can get at 35.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't see I don't see them. Well, at first, I don't see him still being on the board, but I don't necessarily see them staying in that position. I feel the same way again, for my Seahawks, right? Is they're at 16. They need a lot of things. If Penix were to fall to them somehow, they might take a flyer on him because their new offensive coordinator was Penix's coordinator last year in Grubb, right? But I don't foresee that being a real thing. So in true John Schneider, history, they probably trade back out of 16, get some extra picks, and get some interior line, get some defensive edge rushing, and maybe some depth at the linebacker. Although there's not a lot of linebacker, prospects in this particular draft.
So do you think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the real deal? All the hype he's getting as the number one wide receiver, taken more than likely by Arizona at 4?
I mean, he definitely has the pedigree for it.
Yeah.
Right. And, the benefit to kids that had parents that were in the NFL to begin with is they know how to approach it. Right. If it was just his talent alone, I don't know. I'm not even necessarily sure if he is the number one talent in this particular draft. Mm-hmm. But because you have the pedigree, that he's going to and has been coached up to a spot where when he joins the team, he's going to be ready to go. Right. He's not going to have some of those mental hurdles that a lot of rookies do. And so do I think he's going to be the most ready to go receiver? Absolutely. Absolutely.
I got to tell you that one that I've seen here locally that transferred to Florida State, Keon Coleman, the projections have him falling to the second round. Mm-hmm. I think that's the kid to watch out for in the NFL because he's got speed. He can catch the ball. If he keeps his head on straight, I think he'd be all right. And whoever gets him, I think is going to be very happy with him. And like I said, it looks like a day 2 pick for him.
Well, and there's some good day 2 picks. You don't have to get one of these top guys. Like a gem that somebody's going to end up with is Georgia's wide receiver, Ladd McConkey. Mm-hmm. He's going to be nice, right? Like he's got that kind of Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola kind of route running ability. So he's not necessarily the fastest guy ever, but if you were to pick him up for like a slot receiver, he creates separation every play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one of those, yeah, he may not just burn past everybody, but you can get him the ball.
So if you're the Jets, are you pressured to take Brock Bowers just because he's there? Or would you do the smart thing, in my opinion, and try to go after offensive line help, not of the tight end variety?
Man, the Jets are such a dumpster fire all the time. Like, I
Yeah.
can't even, this is why mock drafts don't work, is
Yeah.
because organizations like the Jets and the Bears exist.
Right.
So, like, you can look at something and you'll be like, okay, this is what they need for sure. So, I mean, like, if I can see it from the outside, that should be a no-brainer. And then, they go and do something bizarre, or something that Belichick would do. You're like, okay, they really need this. Instead, he goes and gets a punter and then a kicker and some other, like, 5 guards. So, I mean, none of that stuff makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the Jets need offensive line help. That's why they haven't been able to do anything.
Right.
I mean, I don't necessarily think that Zach Wilson was as bad as he was.
I don't either.
Like, he's not great. His decision making isn't fantastic, but the offensive line didn't help that situation out.
You bring up a great point, Bo, about the mock drafts and what people listen to, because all I can think of is, our Detroit Lions here last year, they just got ridiculed about the first round picks they made with, with getting, Gibbs and then Laporta and, Campbell. They're looking pretty smart with that. Obviously it's kind of an outlier because Detroit has had some really bad first round picks. We won't get into that, but your point is well taken. It just, you just wonder, what goes into this and how many of them really are going to be busts. It's just like going back to these quarterbacks. How many of them, all the hype and everything, how many of them are actually going to really be worth all the hype this year,
Yeah, I mean, realistically, whenever you look at a draft, generally you're going to have, if you have a setup like this where you have, 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are supposed to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
How many of those ever pan out? One, right? And that's optimistic sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, obviously a bunch of these aren't going to work out, and it's not necessarily, that's not totally reliant on them being awesome, right? You run into situations where you are drafted to the Panthers and there's no one to throw to, and you have a new coach every 6 weeks, and you have an owner that's throwing drinks at people. Like, I mean, you can go into complete dysfunction, or you can look at how bad Trevor Lawrence was his first year. Do you think that was because he was bad, or because you had Urban Meyer debut the craziest head coaching job ever? Right. So, I mean, a lot of it can be fit. And if you're the number 1, number 2, number 3 pick, fit is generally not on your side, right? You're going to a team that is inherently bad. And so that's where guys, like, I would never want to see Penix go number 1, right? Because he doesn't have the wheels for it. He needs to land somewhere that has an offensive line. So if he has an offensive line, like if he were to be a Patriot, right? Like if he gets picked up by the Patriots, that could work because they are generally really good at offensive line.
Yeah.
Right. They usually have a good defense, good offensive line. And then if they can get him some okay weapons, they don't have to be stellar, because he is probably the guy that throws the best ball in this draft. Right. So he's a very accurate thrower. If you can keep him upright and not make him have to do a lot with his legs, he may actually have the best shot out of this draft, because, it's something I've been asked a few times with these, kind of later first round quarterbacks with Bo Nix and, Penix is, I've been asked which one I thought would have more success. And my thought on it is if you go somewhere where the offensive line isn't amazing, Bo Nix will be better because he has a little bit more, escapability, right? He has a little bit better legs, but if you have a better offensive line, Penix will show up. So it really just depends, because Penix, in my mind, is a lot like Geno Smith in the ability to extend a play, right? Like, he's not going to take off and run. He's not going to beat you with his legs. He can extend a play and he can scramble if he has to, but that's not his game. Whereas Bo Nix has a little bit more of that. Like, he can move around. He's still not going to be a Lamar Jackson or anything, right? But he can take off and run on you a little bit.
So do you spend all 3 days of the draft in front of the TV and watch it, or is it just the first night for you?
So it depends. So, like last year, I was on different broadcasts for each day. And so in that scenario, yes, because I had to be. But generally, I go through the first 2 days, right? Yeah. The first day, obviously, just because you're finally there. And of course, this particular draft, because I'm not in Detroit, I'm going to be in there's a watch party that the Seahawks are actually kind of putting on at the Queen Anne Beer Hall downtown Seattle. So I'm gonna check that out. It's gonna be kind of fun. And then day 2, I'll watch at home. But yeah, I usually watch the first couple of days because those are going to be your most impactful players. And then I kind of go through the pick list for the third day. Or if I'm home, I'll have it on in the background. I won't intently watch it quite as much, because a lot of those guys I wouldn't have seen play college football either.
Bo, I don't know how long you've been watching football or following football, but isn't it crazy how the production of the NFL draft has just evolved to it's almost like Super Bowl weekend, not quite to that extent, but it's amazing how much more viewership it'll get than the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. Isn't it crazy?
Oh, it is. I mean, the NFL's marketing and media machine is second to none. Like, they have marketed this game in such a incredible way, because when you look at it now, I mean, when I think about when I watched it as a kid, right? Yeah. You were the regulars. I mean, there was, 16 games. There's 4 preseason games, but you didn't get to do anything with OTAs. There was no coverage for that. There was no real coverage for any of the training camps or any of that. Like, you didn't hear about any of it until about 2 weeks before the first preseason game, right? Like that's when you started hearing about football. And then football was done around New Year's. Yeah. Right. And now they've kind of finessed the game out in a way that you're talking about the NFL year round now. Yeah. The game didn't really get any longer, but but we're talking about it year round, because now you have you got their spring workouts, and then OTAs, and of course the draft, and you have 2 different kind of halves of free agency period, because the draft is in the middle of it. And so, I mean, they've done a very good job where all of a sudden now there's about a 3-week section in June that doesn't have any real NFL news.
And it's funny, Bo, is when the schedule release comes out, I guarantee you that their numbers on TV will rival the NBA playoffs.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. I know people that used to stay home to watch that, and I'm like, I feel like that's weird.
My wife thinks it is. I'm full disclosure. She thinks I'm crazy. You're going to watch that? Well, yeah, I got to start planning to see how many wins the Lions are going to have, and she just goes in the other room.
Well, especially when they do, they do the drop of the teams you're playing.
Yeah.
Right. But they don't have the schedule yet, which is, I feel like that's lies. But
right.
I feel like they already have this kind of worked out. But but then you have your like overseas schedule drop.
Yeah.
Right. Because now we know the Eagles are kicking off in Brazil, and you pretty much know what the London games are going to be. Yeah. Right. And then, you have to wait another month month and a half before you get what the actual schedule is, right? So, I mean, they're very smart in dragging their feet to fill all the time blocks.
How do your Seahawks come to Detroit every year and beat the Lions?
I don't know. I enjoy it, though.
I'm sure you do. Oh, my God, it's frustrating.
And it's always a tight game that you guys just can't quite close out.
I don't know what it is. You know, it's almost to the point where it used to be against the Redskins where Detroit didn't beat Washington since they were in Boston in the 30s. So, hey, Bo, a couple of more questions and I'll get you out of here. I really appreciate your time tonight. This has been a lot of fun. What do you think of this with the Reggie Bush Heisman thing? I'm glad he got it back. He's always going to, you know, in my mind, he was always the Heisman winner. Is this, you know, it's crazy, you know, that he had to lobby to get it back, but now I'm glad that he's got it back.
Yeah. I mean, it's about time the NCAA did something right. You know, I mean, I feel like the only time we talk about the NCAA is them doing something dumb that hurts the sport.
Yeah.
And so finally it's like, okay, they give it back to him. It's not like he was doing anything that everybody else wasn't already doing. Yeah. Right. So you're just going to take everyone's trophies away. Like that doesn't really make any sense. And of course, as it sits today, it's part of the game, right? The NIL is part of it. So yeah, I feel like they really had to. And I mean, talk about one of the most dominant players in college football.
Yeah.
He deserves to have that trophy back.
Well, whatever happened off the field, okay, you know, maybe it was illegal back then. Now it's chump change, but it didn't take away from what he did on the field. I totally agree. And what do you make of all, you know, the Pac-12 dissolving? Now you're going to be, I don't know who your college team is. If it's Washington State, I'm sorry, but
but I'm a Husky fan, so we were actually at least in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be awful weird. You know, I'm a historian. You know, I like the history of the college game. You know, there was something to playing out in the Rose Bowl every year, or, you know, I mean, Warren Moon broke my heart, but it's all right. You know, we got a little revenge last year in the championship game, but what a crazy scenario now with you guys being a member of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, the conference collapses aren't done.
No,
because what the NIL and the transfer portal has guaranteed is that this will be a 2 super conference league.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a professional league. And, you know, you finally have an actual playoff coming. I don't know why the NCAA was so against having that be a thing, because it's literally every other level of football from Pee-wee to pro has a true playoff.
Yeah.
And college does too. Yeah. Like D2, they have normal playoff. Yes. Like it was only NCAA Division I that couldn't figure out how to do a playoff, which was wild to me. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tradition that's going to go away. But I mean, the tradition has been sapped from the game for years anyway. So I mean, all of this was inevitable. You know, I think the most disappointing part about it is you are losing some of your rivalries because of it. Mm-hmm. So in my case, we have the Apple Cup every year where it's Washington versus Washington State. And that is a game that's happened 114 times. Right. So, I mean, it's going to be weird. They have made it so that it's on the schedule for the next 2 years anyway.
Okay.
But it's no longer the last game of the year. So it's really not going to be the same anyway. Right. It's an out of conference game. It doesn't really matter. It's just not going to have that same pull to it. So when the Pac-12 finishes falling apart, right, in the next 2 years, I would bet money that Washington State and Oregon State come to the Big Ten and reunite to be able to keep those rivalry schools together. Plus, geographically, it would make sense because then they would be in conference games. So there would be a little less travel. There'd be some logistical things that would aid in them coming. So I would bet when they finish killing the Pac-12, I think the end of 26, I think is the last, or maybe it's the end of 25 is the last one. I imagine they abandon the conference altogether and move over.
Yeah, it's too bad. I get it. I'm all about change, I guess, but it's not going to be NCAA football. You're right. It's going to be 2 super leagues. And I really do hope for your sake they do somehow get Washington State and Oregon State back or over to the Big Ten. That'd be like Michigan and Michigan State not playing, or
Exactly.
Michigan, Ohio State. I just think that's nuts. So,
well,
hey,
it would make sense because then you'd have 2, because they're 18 schools now. It'd be rounded out at 20. So you'd have 2 10-league, divisions, or 10-team divisions would make sense.
I think it's going to, as much as I'd hate to see it being a Michigan guy, I think it would be funny as hell if it ended up being Washington and USC in the Big Ten championship game in December in Indianapolis. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be something. That would be something. I don't think Washington has enough players on their roster for that, but man, they got gutted. They had a few guys declare. They had a bunch of guys hit the transfer portal. Obviously, it's a whole new coaching staff. So, this sadly, my Huskies are probably not going to be a great team this year.
Well, one last thing. Yep. Give me your pick since you're a Seattle guy. Who are they going to take with their first pick tomorrow?
So I think they trade back. Now, as far as the exact player, I'm not sure, but I'm going to go with an interior offensive lineman. And the only reason I say it like that is there are a few, so it'll depend on who's still on the board right there. But I would bet that they probably either trade with Philly or somewhere right about that pick range. So I'm guessing they'll go from the 16th pick to somewhere in the 20, 21, 22 to maybe 24 pick. And, pick up because I don't remember if they have a third rounder. I think they have maybe they don't have a second. So I think they fall back still in the first round, pick up like a second or a third in doing it. But yeah, I'm going to go with interior offensive line.
Not a bad pick. Not a bad pick at all. You can never go wrong with that. Bo, tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel. I know you got a lot of great programming on there. Please tell us where we can find you and what you got going on.
Yeah. So, if you're finding me on YouTube, it's at football-talk. And of course, one of my shows is the Coach's Corner. And my co-host on that is longtime NFL coach John Bonamego. And today we actually had a longtime New York Giants assistant, Anthony Blevins, on. So we were chatting with him. That's the show I came from to be here. And so most of these, all of them can be viewed on my YouTube channel and, of course, on Roku TV. And, of course, if you are finding me on socials, it's Football Talk with Bo.
All right, Bo, again, thank you very much for coming on tonight. Really enjoyed it. It's been very insightful, and enjoy the draft and good luck this upcoming football season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and you do the same. It's going to be a good one.
All right, thanks, Bo. Have a good night. Thank you again. We'll talk to you later. Bo Crouch joining us here tonight. Football Talk with Bo. Again, check out his YouTube channel. I think you're really going to enjoy it. He's got a lot of great, interesting programming on there. And, it's going to be a fun NFL draft. The top pick, obviously, is going to be Caleb Williams. After that, it's probably going to be Jaden Daniels and Drake May. But the intrigue is going to be there. What's going to be the first trade tomorrow night? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be the Vikings trading up? Is it going to be the Chargers trading down? Who knows? Is it going to be the Chargers trading so they get J.J. McCarthy? So much to try to figure out, but we're going to take a look. We'll just can't wait to begin with that. It's going to be what? Another 24 hours and about 15 minutes. So really excited to bring for the 2024 NFL Draft. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup Playoffs and more. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza right here on 12 Ounce Sports.
Do you need tickets? We have you covered. We have soccer from anywhere in the world. Any venue, from any sports. That means we have college and professional football. We have baseball at every level. We have every Power 5 matchup. Remember, costumes and paints are optional. You want to see Broadway? We have them too. We have every concert from every artist. We have you covered at tickets.12ouncesports.com. Tickets for less.
Indeed, we do have tickets for less. That's tickets.12ouncesports.com. You want to go to the Stanley Cup Playoffs? We've got plenty of tickets for those. And, of course, go to tickets.12ouncesports.com. Use the promo code 12ounce, and you'll get even better discount. That is tickets.12ouncesports.com. We are a ticket broker. You won't see the fees you see on some of the other secondary markets. That's tickets.12ouncesports.com. And, of course, brought to you, as always, by Javi Coffee. If you like instant coffee or regular coffee, hot or cold, all it takes is a teaspoon or tablespoon. That's javicoffee.com. Regular, decaf, salted caramel, French vanilla, you name it. Check it out for yourself. That's javicoffee.com. Use the promo code Captain Lou, all one word, and you'll get 15% off of your purchase at checkout. That is javicoffee.com. Again, thanks to Bo Crouch for joining us from Talking Football with Bo, and great insight talking about everything going on with the draft tomorrow, what to look for. How many trades are we going to have tomorrow on the opening day of our day one, I should say, the 2024 NFL draft? I got a feeling there's going to be quite a few. There's going to be some jockeying around. I know Dan Campbell kind of hinted a little bit this morning on a radio show in Detroit that the Lions are at 29, but if their guy isn't there, they're not going to be shy about moving out of the opening round to stockpile a couple of second-round picks. And as our guest Bo Crouch said, there isn't a whole lot of difference between 29 and maybe 35 and 36. But remember, keep in mind, if they do go out of the first round and get that second-round pick at, say, 35 or whatever, they don't have to pay the first-round fifth-year option. That's a big thing to keep an eye on in the opening round. You start getting down to those later picks in the opening round, you can maybe jockey your way out of there, and you don't have to worry about that fifth-year option. So something to keep in mind. But we'll keep an eye on that. Of course, the potential for six quarterbacks in the first round. We pretty much know that the top three picks are going to be quarterbacks. Then after that, it gets to the J.J. McCarthy area. Does he go fifth? Does he go 11th? Do they trade up for him? Do the Vikings trade up for him? Does Bo Nix go in the top 15? Does Michael Penix Jr.? I'm telling you, I love Michael Penix Jr. I've said it since last year. I've watched him at Indiana, watched him at Washington. He's battled through injuries. He had a great post. I shared it on my personal page, Lewis Gamlin on Facebook. The guy, he said, bring the EKG machine with you and I'll show you my heart. I love that. I just think he's going to be a talent, and he could be one of those that could be picked later on in the first round. And I think he could benefit from that, but it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on that. Some of the other picks, Marvin Harrison Jr., I think it would be, what would be so ironic is if he goes fifth to the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, Ohio State, Michigan. Could you see that? Wouldn't that be pretty cool? I don't know if he'll make it to the fifth pick. I think the Cardinals will probably take him at 4, but you never know with the Cardinals. But I honestly think that if the Chargers don't make a trade or pick McCarthy or whatever, I think they're going to go with all the linemen from Notre Dame, and I think that's a huge pick right there. So, again, I hope Ledu is available at 29 for the Lions. I don't think he's going to go there. I know there's talk that Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry might be the Lions pick at 29, depending on if they fall that far. But if they don't, I got a feeling that the Lions will trade out of the opening round unless they, I don't know, get some crazy offers for some picks, higher up. Who knows? All I know is the Lions have made some good picks the last couple of years, and it showed. as they made it all the way to the NFC Championship game and look to get to the next step to the Super Bowl, in doing that today by locking up Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell to long-term extensions. Now they'll probably turn their attention to Jared Goff. We'll see how that all unfolds here this offseason. All right, hey, let's turn our attention real quick to the Stanley Cup playoffs. We got a few minutes left here of the show tonight. The opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs got underway this weekend, man. They've been great. Been a lot of fun to watch. That Florida-Tampa Bay series last night, I got to tell you, Bobrovsky and Vasilevsky, they are putting on a clinic. If you haven't seen that save that Bobrovsky made last night, and then right after that, Vasilevsky, it's just that is must-see theater in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I got to tell you, I think that one, I've got Florida going to potentially to the Stanley Cup finals. I picked two brackets. In my one final, I've got Florida winning it all, I believe. In the other one, I've got Colorado. Colorado, wow, that opening game, losing 7-6 to Winnipeg. Last night, bouncing back 5-2 with a win. I think they righted the ship going home to game 3 and 4. We'll have to wait and see on that. But, boy, I'll tell you what, the Rangers look dominant against the Capitals. Washington looks old. The Capitals really do look old in those first couple of games. They were 2-2 going into the third period yesterday, but it looked like they kind of ran out of steam a little bit. So now I know they get home ice for 3 and 4. We'll have to wait and see. The Islanders and Carolina all knotted up at 1. Let's see if we can't get a score update on what's going on right now in Boston. They're scoreless after the first period. Game 3, Toronto. It's so funny on social media and everything after game 1. Everybody's going to say Boston's going to win that one in a sweep. I'm telling you, the Maple Leafs aren't dead. Now they were able to snatch game 2 in Boston. They've got home ice. This is such a pivotal game for the Maple Leafs. I've got Maple Leafs winning in 6. If it goes to game 7, forget about it. They're not going to do it. But what a huge win that was the other night for the Maple Leafs. So game 3 going on right now, first period in the books, no score. That's going to be a huge one to watch out for. In the Western Conference, what can you say about the Golden Knights? I know it's just one game, but they took care of business against Dallas, the defending champions, an 8 seed. They've got Stone back, Pietrangelo back. Everybody's whining and complaining about the way Stone all of a sudden got cleared to play for the playoffs. That's the rules. They're not breaking any rules to do it. Now it's on Dallas to win game 2. They lose game 2 to the Golden Knights, forget about it. They're done. I had Dallas over Vegas in 7, so there's still a lot of time left. But that one, Vegas, flexed their muscles the other night. And what do you say about the Edmonton Oilers? Boy, you talk about flexing your muscles against the Kings. I think I picked them to beat the Kings in 5. I don't see anything to deter that from happening. They could win it in 4. So we'll see in game 2 there tonight. And so, yeah, it's been a great start to the Stanley Cup finals, the Stanley Cup playoffs. This is my favorite round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the opening round. So much intrigue, so many great matchups, especially this year. We talked about it. Boston, Toronto, Florida, Tampa Bay, Carolina and the Islanders. That's 1-1. Patrick Waugh behind the bench for the Islanders, giving them a spark. Then you got the Predators and the Canucks. The Predators win in game 2. They're all even at 1. Watch out for Nashville. They've got an opportunity being the number 1 wild card team. And, we talked about it last week with the Predators and Vancouver. Vancouver, in my opinion, overachieved winning that division. Nobody saw that happening. Did they run out of steam? I don't know. Is the luster off? Now they got to go to Nashville for games 3 and 4. That's going to be huge. Nashville's got a golden opportunity to take a stranglehold in that one. That one, I picked going 7 games as well. I had Vancouver, but that was pretty much a coin flip right there. So we'll keep an eye on that. So some great matchups in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just, again, 2 weeks of theater, the opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. A lot of those matchups, I got a feeling, are going to go 7 games for sure. Boy, it just really is exciting. All right. Again, we touched on this a little bit, talking to Bo Crouch, our guest, talking football with Bo. You can find him on YouTube. Really, again, can't say enough about, check that network out. He's got a lot of great programs on there. We talked about the transfer portal. My goodness, it's gone out of control. It's gone crazy. All these kids going back and forth. I know it's open again until I think the end of April. Hitting Michigan State hard here. A lot of the Mel Tucker guys are gone. Even in basketball, it's just there is no end in sight right now. This transfer portal and NIL, it's just free agency gone wild. And now you can get automatic eligibility, and you can transfer as many times as you want. If you don't get the playing time you think you deserve, you can just go to another school if you meet their academic standards and academic progress. Really? That means they go to class for what? 3 weeks, maybe through the 3rd game, and then boom, they can transfer out. They don't want to go to class anymore. It's just such a hypocrisy. There are no rules in the NCAA right now. I mean, you can pay them whatever you want. Some of these, I saw an interesting stat with the underclassmen declaring for the NFL draft. What was it? 3 years ago, there was 110. Now it's down to 53. And, the main reason is some of these fringe players in the 1st round or 2nd round, they're making more money in NIL than they would make as a 2nd or 3rd round pick in the NFL. And that's only going to explode. You've got the football-crazed Big 10, SEC, Big 12. You've got these boosters that are willing to pay these kids millions of dollars. Caleb Williams, I think, made $10 million at USC. That's insane. Who would have thought 20 years ago? And I was talking with my brothers-in-law or whatever in a little group chat that we have, and it's just there's no standard right now. And it all goes back to be careful what you wish for. I was a big opponent of the players getting paid for the longest time because, I thought, these guys are getting a free education, free medical, meals, and the whole bit. And I used to hear this thing about how athletes were going hungry while they're playing. Are you kidding me? When I went to Central, the last people that were hungry were athletes on full ride scholarships. They got all the food they wanted. I don't buy that. Education just isn't enough anymore. Now everybody said they got to get compensated for their likeness and this and that. I'm telling you, now it's just gone so far overboard the other way. It's absolutely incredible. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it anymore. It's like Bo said earlier today. It is the wild, wild west is coming. There is just going to be one super league, 2 divisions. And these athletes, they're not going to go to class. They're just going to have the college jersey on their back. They're not going to have to go to class. They're going to get paid millions of dollars. And it's just going to be a minor league. It's going to be a glorified minor league to the NFL. And the next step is going to be they're either going to extend the eligibility for college football to however long they want because it's going to be a glorified minor league, just like AAA baseball or the AHL for hockey or the G League for basketball. As long as they got some talent, they'll keep them there. And the other thing is, sooner or later, they're going to drop the rule where you got to have 3 years before you're eligible for the NFL draft because they're going to start getting young guys that, the NFL is going to have, they're going to see that. So it's just the absolute wild, wild west. All right. Hey, again, the big news, if you're a Detroit fan, a Detroit Lion fan, again, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Penei Sewell signed long-term contract extensions. They're going to be in Detroit for a while. Great news for us Lion fans. We've got our two kingpins in the Detroit offense are going to be here for quite a while. Exciting news. Just makes you get giddy for the playoffs, giddy for the season, potential playoffs, I should say, and just now we can turn our attention to the NFL draft, which starts 24 hours from now. All right, that's going to do it here for the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Again, want to thank our guest tonight, Bo Crouch from the Talking with Bo series on YouTube. Check him out there. And again, great insight. You can catch the entirety of our show here on our YouTube channels on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network. So I invite you, if you missed any part of that interview, check it out. We had some great insight, great thoughts on where he thinks some of the players are going to go and some of the impacts these players are going to have in the NFL. All right, that's going to do it this week. We got a lot of great news happening here on the Captain Lou Sports Network and 12 Ounce Sports. We're going to share it with you next week. We've got a new show coming up that can't wait to talk to you more about it next week. But until then, Captain Lou says, enjoy the draft tomorrow night and this weekend. Enjoy the Stanley Cup Playoffs, NBA playoffs, if that's your thing, and Major League Baseball. And if you want to go live, make sure you join. Check out tickets.12ouncesports.com. All right, everybody, this reminder, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza right here. Until next time, Captain Lou saying so long, and thanks for joining us on 12 Ounce Sports and the Captain Lou Sports Network for the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So long.